Okay, when are the candidates going to talk about the real problems in our country? The problems that are so big and nobody wants to talk about them anymore. I mean, everybody, candidates run around and say, well, I'm going to give a tax break here, or I'm going to put a fence up here, or immigrants are bad, immigrants are good, or whatever. Man, that's a fraction of what's really going on in this country now. Look at this. It's really health care. Man, that's our biggest problem that nobody wants to talk about. Now, look what's going on here. Okay, and since 1960, okay, now that's when health care was just 5% of our entire economy. Okay, 5%, 1960. Okay, now it went up to 18%, 17, 18% of everything we do is paying for health care. That means the average family now, a family of four, is something like $20,000 a year to go to health care. Paying health care, man, $20,000. I mean, that's incredible. And everybody thinks, oh, we had Obamacare, and people think that solved the problem. It certainly didn't solve the cost problem, right? Or people think it's turning us into socialists and they want to get rid of it or whatever. Man, the main thing is we're spending money and going in debt because of this stuff. And if that's not the case, man, look at what the federal expenditures on healthcare. Look at this graph. Now, this is done by a conservative organization, the Peterson Foundation, and you see that out in the future, from 2010 to 2050, man, major health programs are the biggest part of the budget. Look, it's twice the Defense Department, almost twice the Social Security, or actually, certainly more than 50% more, and even so, all the discretionary income. Look at non-defense and non-defense discretionary income. So you have defense and non-defense, and that's nothing compared to health care. Other mandatory programs, that's all the other social programs, welfare and all that, and mandatory food stamps, that's peanuts compared to the healthcare problems, what we're spending on that. But everybody seems to ignore that. Why? I mean, if you were buying, a car or something that's worth $1 gazillion and maybe not worth it, why are you spending that much money? We don't know. We just think it's good, and we keep spending money, and nobody asks the right question. What the hell are we doing that for? So, why do we spend so much? Man, well, look at this. Other countries aren't doing that. Look what we spend per capita. Okay, so that the average person in this country now spends like almost $9,000 a year on healthcare. $9,000 a year on healthcare. That's what we're spending. Okay, the average of all the other developed countries, all the other countries like us, we're not comparing ourselves to Bangladesh or something like that, all the other developed countries, the rich kids in the world, how do they spend, what do they spend on healthcare? Half. They spend half of what we get. So a family of, has to spend $20,000 a year in this country. They're only spending $10,000 per family in other countries. I mean, that's amazing to me. They're spending half. And so if they're spending half, then at least particularly during the debate, and the healthcare say, oh, we got the best healthcare in America, in the world, right? Number one, everybody comes here and all that kind of stuff. Well, let's look at that a little more, okay? There's a report that came out of all the fat cats in the country, in the world, I mean, and how well we're doing against all the other fat cats in the world, on healthcare. Okay, are we really number one? Yes, we are, actually. We're number one in spending, as I just showed you. Spending twice as much as everybody else on an average. But we're also number one in having the shortest life expectancy for men. So if you're a man in this country, you're going to live shorter than any other country. All the other men in all the other countries are living longer than we are. Now, if you were belonging to a club, there were 17 members of this club, and they're all living longer, wouldn't you want to know what the hell they're doing to live longer? Don't you want to live longer? Well, we're number one in the shortest lifespan for men. But listen to this, there's hope here, because we're only number two in the shortest lifespan for women. Hey, we're only number 2, but we're back on top when it comes to infant mortality, kids dying at birth. We're number 1 in the world of all these rich kids in the world. So infant death rates, we're number 1. We're also number 1 in adolescent pregnancy, sexually transmitted infections. So we talk about the number 1 in healthcare in the world. Man, we are number 1 in sexually transmitted disease for adolescents. Or we're number 1 in HIV infections. Yay! Yes, great for us, right? Or how about the number of years, the number of years of life lost because of alcohol or drugs? And this is not because of traffic accidents, but just because you're addicted or something. We're number 1 again. Wow, what a deal. Or how about, this is a great being number 1. We're number 1 in obesity. We're the number 1 country of all these rich kids in obesity. Man, we're keeping on the number 1. How about this? We're number 1 in diabetes. Yay! Boy, number 1 again. Or how about the death rate from coronary disease? No, oh gosh, we're number 2. I'm sorry. Well, here's another number 1 we're at. In our inactivity as we get older because of arthritis. Okay, we can't do as many things. We're number 1 in inactivity because of arthritis for our older citizens. Man, isn't it great to be number 1? Why do we get so excited about our healthcare system when we're paying so much? You know, and the outcome, I mean, isn't it like how long you live or how sick you get or this kind of thing? Isn't that how you judge? Not because, you say you're number 1. Are you number 1? It's the data. I mean, that's why, and this isn't un-American. This is like a coach. A coach's not going to tell a team that they're great. Sure, they're great inside, but man, they got to play, man. You got to make people live longer. You got to do this. And why are you spending twice as much as everybody else? Huh? Now that's stupid to me. When you get the same thing, spend twice as much. Here's another thing too about the healthcare system. Man, look. Okay, here's the Centers for Disease Control, and the main reasons for dying. Okay, the leading causes of death. Number 1 is heart disease. There's like 600,000 people a year die from heart disease. Number 2 is cancer. About $548,000 a year. I mean, 500, not dollars, lives a year die of cancer. Now look at number 3. It's not on this list, but the data show over 200,000 to 400,000 people die a year because of mistakes in hospitals. Right. So we got 200,000 to 400,000 people dying every year. That's the number 3 cause of death, is going to the hospital and them screwing up. Not because you're sick, because they messed up. They killed you. Now, if your automobile was killing $200,000 to $400,000 a year, they'd be taking that off the road, right? If something was wrong with the automobile because it was killing people, we wouldn't be driving around those cars. You'd never see them again. One death and, they're having a recall, the whole thing. When are we going to recall these hospitals? No, we we'll just pay twice. We're going to pay twice as much. Isn't that fun? Just so we could be number 1 in something, which I'm not even sure. And actually, if you go to that list, accidents and all kinds of things, well, automobiles. I used to think automobiles was the most dangerous thing you do in life. Man, no, only 32,000 deaths a year in automobiles versus 200,000 to 400,000 in the hospital by mistakes in the hospital. These are accidents, incompetence or whatever the heck happens, not because of your disease or the illness or the reason you went there, because the hospital screwed up somewhere. So that's what it is. So what are we doing in this world? Paying a hell lot more for health care. I mean, it just seems silly to me. If you look at the data and you see that we're worst in the world, we live the least longevity of life than all the other developed countries. More kids die at birth than all the other developed countries, and we pay twice as much. Gosh, now if there's a way to make individuals do more with their money, why don't we do that? Everybody's worried, we got to give money out of the taxpayers. Well, actually, what's interesting about Obamacare, now that didn't solve any of those problems. The only problem it worked on, in my mind, is that got people to get covered in insurance that weren't covered. what happened is they went from like, we had, I think, about 40 million people did not have insurance before Obamacare, and we're down to about 32 million. So that shrunk. So we're getting that down a little bit. So I mean, that's almost immoral, I think, to have a country where people don't have insurance, so they can't take care of themselves. I know personal stories. They didn't have insurance, so they didn't find out about something, and they died prematurely because they didn't have insurance. I mean, that seems like a moral obligation, to all of us. So that's why, to me, at least Obamacare did that. Did nothing about the big problem of money. I mean, just think if we paid half, like all the other countries do, we'd have enough money to pay everybody for full insurance. And if you look at what the other countries, how much of their insured, nobody in that list of 17, has less than 99.9% coverage. So they're paying half what we have. 100% of their people have health insurance, and they're living longer and having less diseases and less other medical problems. Wow! Isn't that telling you something about what's going on in the world? And everybody argues about spending $1 million here, $1 million there. Man, this is 20% of the GDP. Why aren't we worrying about that? Because it's twice as much as anybody else. You have to compare yourself to everything. You can't fool yourself that you're the best because you call yourself the best. How do we compare to other people? Why are these people doing it? I don't know the right answer. But boy, it seems like that's the problem we have to work on. And when I look at that data, we are the only country that's paying so much for private health insurance. Nobody else does. So maybe that's a clue. That may be a clue. Like I say, we got to work on this problem, not ignore it. Everybody says, "Oh, we can't do this because all the government does is bad, and then all the pharmaceutical companies are bad, and that's stupid." We got to fix this problem of spending twice as much on healthcare and getting shittier results than anybody else in the world. Okay, this year there's an extra $1 billion. That's $1 billion available for personal grants for anybody to use. Man, and Congress doesn't even know about it. The reason they don't know about it, man, because it's not from the government. This is from crowdfunding sites that specialize just in your personal needs that you need extra money for. I mean, it's amazing to me because it's certainly a lot easier than getting a government grant. You have no bureaucratic paperwork to fill out. Or no government offices to deal with. And they don't know. There's no credit checks or any of these kind of things. I mean, in 10 minutes you could be up and raising money. You have to do effort on your part to make sure people know about your campaign. But this is what's going. $1 billion. I used to always think that Kickstarter, one of the biggest campaigns, platforms that have crowdfunding, was the biggest. But now it's GoFundMe.com that specializes in just personal money. That's all. And $1 billion. I mean, that's phenomenal. So they're bigger than Kickstarter now, or Indiegogo, all those other big guys that claim to be the head of the roost. And the kinds of things they have, like I was just looking at their site right now. Like a friend who avoid homeless. This woman was in college and she's afraid to be homeless because they lost her scholarship or whatever. And she went on the site and got $7,900 so far. She's not even finished. Here, a first grader who wanted they call them a buddy bench, little bunches for playgrounds, so two people could sit and chat and be with your buddy. Now, isn't that cute? So the administration, for their school district isn't going to do it. The first grader will put it in herself. Man, what power now we have in our society. The first grader could get around the school board. How do you like that? Well, here's a guy, a nice sweet man. He needed an extra car. They only have one car. They have a family, 3 kids they're trying to take care of. I think he's in like a security guard or something like that. And so he went on the site, got $14,000 for him really to get his kids to, the after school activities, and the mom works, the dad works, how busy families are nowadays. So it's helping out with that. I mean, these are personal grants. See, if you go to apply for a grant for the government, there's usually very little money that's, you can do whatever you want for it. Usually it's like for utility bills, or help you pay your mortgage, or maybe college tuition and things. But this, you put up anything you want. Here's a lady who wants to go to drama school. $1,800 to do that. And people are getting wise to this. Other people in crowdfunding, like one of the big crowdfunding sites, Indiegogo, now they're at up a personal website just for them. They're branding it differently than their Indiegogo site, and they call it generosity.com. And they're actually not even charging a commission. See, like GoFundMe, they have a commission charge. I mean, it's usually like 5% or something like that, plus your credit card charge was maybe 2-3%. Well, they're not charging that 5%. So you use them, and you give you more, than you expected. And actually, you may have heard, I was mentioning this the other day. People in my city in Washington, D.C. here used Indiegogo generosity.com to raise like $1,400 for a homeless guy at one of our parks that used to hang out all the time. And all of a sudden they realized he died and he wasn't there anymore. And so they chipped in on the crowdfunding campaign to get $1,500 to have him a nice burial. I mean, isn't that wonderful how citizens now can take action and live in the kind of city you want to live in? And the bureaucrats and the politicians don't want to do it, man. The way you think it should be done, you could do it yourself. And actually the GoFundMe, I mean, they say that they help 1.8 million people with their medical bills. Just on medical bills alone. This is why most people were going bankrupt before, Obamacare, was because of medical bills. And so they helped almost 2 million people with medical bills. Everything from premature baby to cancer. And there's other websites. I mean, we have interviews too. The people run these other sites, like giveforward.com. That's another website that deals in these personal kind of problems. Caring.com, and actually they take 0% of the money also. Or mycause.com.au, that's from Australia, AU, and it still doesn't matter because they Australia's really close on the internet. Or causewish.com. See, and all these things that are available out there for all of us to use, but we don't know it because, we just think, oh, that stuff is so complicated or whatever. No, this stuff is easier than anything probably you're doing now. I've interviewed bunches of people. Here's some interviews that I've done. Like, here's a dad who needed a transplant. And he lost his job, waiting for this transplant and everything. He's probably going to be out of work for a long time. Raised $45,000. Okay. Here's a lady who did it for a friend. She raised $50,000 because a friend of hers lost her job because of cancer. Wow, what do you do? And if you don't help people like that, there's not a program and the government says, oh, I lost my job because of cancer program. No. So that's why you go on these sites and raise money. It takes some effort. It takes no money, very little time to get up and start going. Well, here's a sweet story too. This young woman, just out of college, her best friend from grade school dies, okay? And God, it was a terrible illness she had. And the family ran up like $50,000 worth of medical bills that weren't covered from the insurance company. She goes on the internet and raises the money, $50,000 to do that. This story, man, this lady, Penny Sham, I mean, she deserves a hero award. She saw a accident right in front of her on the highway. Stops, the guy was thrown from his car, whatever. She goes over, holds him while the ambulance is coming, and notice his hand is gone. He lost his hand in the accident. It was a bad accident. So the paramedics come. She comes home, goes on the internet, raises $75,000 for him to get a new hand. Wow, I mean, that's superhero stuff, man. So we all can be superheroes now. Or here's this young man about his girlfriend. He's like a 22-year-old living downtown here in Washington, D.C. His girlfriend got cancer, lost her job, couldn't make an income and everything. He went on the internet and raised $23,000 for her. I mean, it's just these personal grants that on crowdfunding. It's not as big as the government money, but boy, it's an alternative. Big $1 billion already. It's just starting. Stuff is just starting. So you got to learn about it. Don't be the last one to get on the train. Everybody, stays away from something new because, I don't know if that's, it sounds complicated and I bet it really doesn't work. And there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts. Sure there is, but people are doing it. Thousands and tens of thousands of people getting $1 billion. And if you don't learn it now, sure, by the time everyone's doing it, you'll say, hey, I guess this isn't bad. And then you'll start learning about it, and then it's no longer an opportunity. The opportunities are there when nobody else is using it. That's why when you Google, how do I get a hand for my friend? You're not going to find this. You got to be creative. You think everything's on the internet. It may be, but it's going to be on page 5,762 of your Google search, and you'll never get that far to see it. So that's why you have to really do harder research, nowadays than ever. Even though you think Google does it all, that's nonsense. To find the good stuff, that isn't real popular there, they're the opportunities, and that's where the good stuff is. And that requires some effort on your part to do the work. But the help is out there. Please start using it. Okay, here's another government program where millionaires are becoming billionaires, and they're not only doing it at the expense of government money, but actually of students too. People are trying to go to college, and it's these for-profit colleges. What they do is get people to come to their college. They spend very little education, and they get the student to get a government loan. They get all the money. You have the debt, and who knows what kind of education you really got. And gosh, these people are becoming billionaires doing this, and it's a new thing. And I told you about another college earlier that got busted by the government, and you get your loan provision. That's Corinthian colleges and all their subsidiary colleges, so make sure you investigate that one. And this is another one now that they're giving money back. They have to. They get caught with their hands in the cookie jar, so the students are able to get their student loan back and stuff like that. So that's why you want to know. These are 100,000 students. Okay, the name of the college is Education Management Corp. Now that's just the umbrella corporation, EDMC. And actually they're own part of Goldman Sachs. Remember Goldman Sachs? They were back in the financial crisis days. They're one of those guys. So they know where the money is, right? So that's right. They own part of this thing. And the colleges are Art Institute of Pittsburgh, of Philadelphia, of Chicago. They get them all over the country. They get paid, you're going to become a graphic artist, and all you have to do is borrow this money and we'll train you, and you get nothing. Right? So they got all campuses all over. South University, Argosy University, Brown Mackie College, you've probably seen them all over the internet because that's where they spend all their money, is on the internet. But just this week, they got caught. Attorney General, or actually the Justice Department and the Department of Education, got a settlement from them, and it's a result of a whistleblower lawsuit where the company was using boiler room tactics to enroll students who had little chance of succeeding in college. Because they take a course or two, this is really for me, and they're stuck with the loan, and the company got the loan, or the college, and you got to pay it off. Lucky you. And like people in Massachusetts, they're involved. A lot of attorney generals are also on this suit too. So they're using the money they get to pay back the student loans from kids in their states, things like that. So you got to find out about that. See, the lawsuit says the company collected $11 billion. They got $11 billion. 90% of it is in student aid. So 90% of their money comes from student aid. That means the government money. So it wouldn't be great to start a school and just have the government pay for your whole school. But then they got it under what's called the False Claims Act. I'm going to investigate more of that. But see, the people were selling this, they would work on commissions. They sold you over the phone, and that's how they usually work. They become your best friend over the phone. Oh, don't worry, it'll be so easy, and you'll have a degree and make millions of dollars and all that kind of stuff. Well, the people were working on commission, which is against this law as far as I could see, and they would get trips to Vegas and Mexico and all this kind of stuff. And it's an education management share price fell sharply since the investigation began to 9 cents. I think that's why they didn't put them all in business altogether. They're trying to use the money they have to pay some of the students back. So what do? How do you find these people? Okay, what you do is you call, there's an ombudsman at the Department of Education. An ombudsman means somebody who's on the consumer side. Okay, so they set up an office, the Department of Education. I call it, some nice people, whatever. So, hey, I always went to one of these schools. How do I get my money back? 877-557-2575. 1-877-557-2575. Also, your attorney general. I mean, actually, both of those places is where to complain. If something about your student loan or trying to get one, or they screwed it up, or the college, even if it was a for-profit or state school, anybody messing around with your student loan money, you could call them. And they'll do something about it, investigate it or whatever. It's good. Short of hiring an attorney, you call these sources first, like your state attorney general. See, on this for-profit college deal, about 40 of them are involved in this. So you go to naag.org. naag.org, and there's a big button there that says, "Who's my AG?" That means Attorney General, and you can find out who in your state and contact their office. But if you haven't been burned yet by a for-profit school, you will, man, because they just don't even bother putting a mask on when they're getting after this money. So, and the education, I mean, look at the spending they put on education. Going to one of these schools, the amount they spend on education, like educating somebody for a year, is like $2,600, okay, versus like a private school will spend almost $6,000, no, I'm sorry, a private school will spend $15,000, and a state school will spend $9,000. So they're spending like, not a half, not a third, like a tenth almost, of what a private college or a public school, college would spend. So they're spending nothing. So you're getting a product they don't invest in at all. These other colleges invest like 10 times more than they do in the college, in the education that you're getting. They spend nothing because all their money is spent on advertising. I've seen a lot of this data before, but I went through and tried to find new data because they've been investigating on Capitol Hill, and they can't get the rules changed so they get these guys out of this business because their lobbyists spend so much money on Capitol Hill lobbying not to get the laws changed because they got so much money. And who's giving them the money? The lobby? The government. Right? So here's some data from an article that says some estimates would say it would cost less than half that amount. In other words, here's what it comes down to. Schools, the for-profit schools, enroll about 10% of college students, and that but take in more than 25% of all the financial aid. So they're getting 10% of the students, but 25% of all the financial aid. And the money they are getting in financial aid from the government, okay, so the government money, they get 25% of this government money, but only have 10% of the students. Half of that money could fund the existing 2- and 4-year public universities for no cost. In other words, isn't that amazing? So everybody at the 2-year colleges, community colleges, 4-year colleges could go to school for free based on this money that we're spending in the for-profit, only half of the money that we're spending on for-profit universities. I mean, that's a killer. Or listen to this. For-profit colleges can be up to twice as expensive as Ivy League colleges and routinely cost 5 or 6 times the price of community college. So 5 or 6 times the price. And the cost they spend on education is a fraction of what the community colleges cost. For example, you want to become a medical assistant. Okay, the program at the for-profit university called HEALD, H-E-A-L-D, in Fresno, California costs $22,000. A comparable program at the community colleges, $1,600. So you want to pay $22,000 or $1,600. Also paying $22,000, you get a product that they're paying only $2,600 for. The product that you're getting for $1,600, they're paying like $10,000 on you. God, I mean, that's crazy. Why would you buy something really expensive, pay a lot of money for something that's cheap, when you have a chance of getting something that's really expensive for cheap, Or associate's degree in paralegal studies at one of these for-profit colleges costs $41,000. You could get the same thing at the community college for $2,300. God, that's like 5% of what it would cost. You could get. I mean, that... and they're only 30 miles apart from each other. That's incredible to me. So that's right. I think the bottom line is just stay away from for-profit colleges. Maybe there's some good ones. I haven't seen them. If you do, send me the information because I'd love to know about it. When you can get the same thing a lot cheaper, because they're getting government money. Yeah, and you're getting the debt, and that's right. Particularly, you're going after veterans because they get more money. So they have special dispensations to even get more of their money from government money because they're doing it for veterans and all this stuff, and they're lobbying like hell. So that doesn't change. So just be careful, and remember, if you have trouble in any of your student debt problems, call that ombudsman's office, okay? I gave you that phone number earlier, 877-557-2575. Before you go, anybody's going to solve your debt problems with the student debt, or the school screwing you over with the student debt, or any of them, that's the number. And if that doesn't work, call your elected official. That's your congressman, your senator, those people. Yeah, they have people on their staff that do that. And they want to do that for you because you're going to vote for them forever if they do something nice for you. Remember? Okay, whatever you do, never give anybody over the phone or online or anywhere money who promises you a grant. I've been studying grants for like 30, 40 years and all kind of government programs. And we still get people that call in. And somebody called me up and said, if I just give them $300 and they promise me a grant. Or some people buy our stuff and think they're paying to get a grant, and they're not. Nobody could guarantee you getting a grant except the people giving out the grant. So if somebody's selling you something, they're not the people in charge of giving out the money, because the people that got giving out the money don't charge you to apply. So what I do, and I think other people, legitimate or not legitimate, try to show you where the grants are. We can't promise you a grant. Nobody can. And some of our people that sell for us or something maybe get excited about it, and people want to hear what they want to hear, but there are other people out there, real bad people, that promise you that you can get it, and all you have to do is give me money and you'll get $10,000, $5,000. That's ridiculous. It can't happen. Nobody could do that, unless you're working at the office that hands out the money. They're the only people in charge. So what I could only do is show you where to go to apply. Because it's so many places and nobody knows the obvious, and the internet is really a bigger problem finding it than helping you find it. And so that's the issue. But other thing, what it reminds me of, particularly I see scam things that are happening, and the one about grants, people promising you a grant, you sell them $300 or give them the check number or whatever. That is a cycle. Every time people are in financial trouble, people will get on the phone and start calling you and promise you this. And so the Better Business Bureau and everybody else who watches and they see complaints has a record of how many they get and what are the hot ones. So this is turning hot again. So you maybe get a call, but don't just hang up. Don't whatever. Even if it's us or anybody. Because we can't. And years ago, maybe about 10 years ago, I got caught up with a regulatory agency up in New York City. This is an interesting story. It changed, at least it was to me, because I was the blunt of this action. And they called me one day and said, hey, Lesko, we want to help get rid of all these bad grant people who are calling people up and ripping them off with money and promising them grants. I said, sure, I'll help you. I help anybody like that, help them get rid of bad people. And so I worked with these people for about 6 months. Showing them the industry, what's going on, showing them about grants, my business, how I do it, and everything like that. Okay. So, and they were trying to get rid of these scammers who were calling people up and getting grant. Well, lo and behold, months and months later, they came out with this report, and they say, Lesko's a liar. And I Google my name one morning, and I see 50 headlines about me. Yeah. And it's from this guy who I helped write this report for a government agency up in New York. Yeah. It turned out they were political appointees who were just against government programs in general. And I get the flack on that a lot. Oh, you're promoting welfare and all this kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. And these are real programs I talk about. But it's so funny that what they were their contention was that because I was doing all this advertising, I was encouraging these companies to call people up and promise them outrageous things that they can't deliver. I wasn't doing it. I was not being investigated. They didn't find anything wrong with my program. I mean, I have 17,000 programs in the books I had then. And they didn't say any of those were wrong. They just said, well, you're misleading on one or two. So there was one or two of the programs that were 17,000. Man, if that's all they do in like mislead people, that's amazing. But it was phenomenal. I mean, to see my headlines about these aligners. And that's what people, and if you look at me on Wikipedia now or something, you'll see that thing. But it won't say that, of this, that they weren't investigating me. They had no problem with me. Just that somehow just some mysterious way I'm causing this, in the culture because of my successful ads. None of my 17,000 programs I mentioned, they're all real. I was not under investigation, and they don't mention that I have a better, record at the Better Business Bureau than Bill Gates. See, we have 0 unsatisfied complaints. You may misread in what I say. I can't tell what's in anybody's mind, and I get excited and all the time. So I give you your money back no matter what. So that's why I take pride in that. We have 0 unsatisfied complaints. Because we don't even join the Better Business Bureau. I think they're a mafia. You better join and give us money so you look good to the consumer. No, I don't want to screw the consumer. I don't want to give you money. I just don't want to screw this consumer. The consumer, to me, you're getting screwed if somebody doesn't give you money. If you sign 500 pages of stuff and say, see, you signed it. I'll give you money. That's why I don't have you sign anything. Or listen to this. I also took a lie detector test. That's right. A lie detector test. Yeah. I went on national television. I mean, I don't know much about that. I was worried. Passed with flying colors and everything. So it was an interesting, experience. I learned a lot. What I learned more than anything, man, I know more about government programs than anybody else in America. I mean, they were telling me about, in my book, I talk about all this grant money, $1 trillion or whatever. And they said, they called up the government and asked how much grant money. And they said it was only like a quarter of that. Well, I don't use grant money. I use the term free money. Because, see, 80% of the free money that the government gives out is not even called grants. They were going to the government office asking about grants, see if I was correct. They asked the wrong question. You got to know the questions to ask. So that's why inviting these people after they said that, man, it didn't matter. It really just proved to me, how much more I know about this stuff than anybody else. But just be careful. Anybody promises you a grant, as long as you give them money, they can't. I can't do that. Nobody can do that. I've been studying this 30, 40 years. So don't give them money. You have to do the work. You have to find the place. And that's what we do. Help you find the right places. That's all. No magic. Well, can you get money to buy the house you want? Or actually even get money to give, to show somebody to get money to buy your house, to help sell your house better. And actually there's a database I found that I should have done. Man, I have all the data, but they arranged it so nicely. And they're called downpaymentresource.com. And actually they show, really, they're together a realty track. These are the big people who get all the information about buying and selling houses, and I guess they sell data to real estate salesmen. And they sell this data too for down payment assistance and closing costs and all those kind of programs that are all over. But they show that 87% of the homes today are eligible for these down payment programs. In other words, for you to help you buy a house, the government, nonprofit organizations, community action groups, things like that, will give you extra money to make sure you can buy the house, to help, because you can't make the down payment. So they provide that kind of money for you. And what's neat about it, they have a database. Now that's, to me, the neatest thing. And the database contains about 2,400 programs. So there's 2,400 programs. And about 900 or 800 or 900 of those programs are really for any kind of home buyer. No matter first time, last time, 15 times I bought a house or whatever, there's about 800 programs or so to help you buy a house. And if you're a first time buyer, there's about 1,500 programs to help you buy a house. And so they've collected them all on this website, and you go to their website, downpaymentresource.com, and find a program. You just click on that to try to find a program. And there's, they probably have most of them because they do research for like this all the time, and it's public. But to make sure, the data changes all the time, and the best place to check on something like this, these programs, is your state housing authority. I looked in there, and that's most of the programs they have, the state housing authority. There are other local ones and stuff, but there's two places, state housing authority and also 211. If you call your local 211, particularly I know in the Maryland, they'll give you a whole bunch of nonprofit organizations that they may or may not have. And what also that database is missing is fixing up money. So you may not know about the other programs you can get money to fix up your house, whether it's grant money or low interest loan money and stuff like that. It looks like they're just interested in down payment. But no matter what house you're buying, you should also go to HUD, HUD.gov, and look for the counseling offices. You could just put, Google HUD.gov counseling, and they'll show you the offices, because it's a long URL, and I hate to put that in, but it's HUD Housing Counseling, and you put that, because they have free counseling. These are people who get grants. They're at nonprofit organizations, so they're not going to advertise they're available to you. You have to find them. They get grants from the government to help you buy a house. They won't charge you anything. They're not going to sell you money. They're not to do anything. So they're going to know a lot more about the programs in your area, than probably anybody else, even your realtor. They don't, because they're more interested in finding people with money and putting houses in their pocket or whatever, so they can put money in their pocket. So that's why it takes effort. You can't trust salesmen because they don't have a need to know. They're just trying to sell. So you have to do this research yourself. All the good information is out there. It just takes effort. It's not going to just take one Google source and you're going to point at something, and it's all going to be there. That's why I like, this down payment resource. .com, because they at least collected all this stuff from all the states and the counties and try to put it in one place for you, and that's good to know. So the stuff is out there. It takes some work. Use people like this who've done the work for you, but just don't trust one expert that tells you anything. There's more out there than you ever could imagine.